Do you hear me?
Yeah. Hey, Scott.
What's
How's it
going on?
going, man?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for uh thanks for doing this, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. It's fun doing interviews and talking with people.
Yeah, I know. I've been excited about this all week. I almost feel starstruck. It's just that YouTube thing.
I
Um,
know.
it's crazy how that works. But it's funny. So I've been this year I decided like, okay, I'm gonna do art every day, and I did like the first month, and I started feeling like all proud of myself, and then I went like, wait a second, Scott is like the man, like however, however, however like professional I feel like I'll get into a groove. I'm like, this dude's done at least 190 days so far. And so I was like, I just have to talk to you about this because you're kind of on another level right now.
Yeah, that's
Um,
cool.
what made you like motivated you to start this project?
Um, I need to get. I have a full-time job right now, and I need to get a collection of paintings together. But I kept kicking the can down the road. Basically, I would paint. I would try to wait until I had like a block of time to paint, and the my output was not where I needed it to be.
Yeah.
Basically. That was the problem. I was making like a painting a month, which is like 12 paintings a year. Um, if I have like this idea in my head that if I get 100 paintings done, that will kind of be the like 100 like real good, like best effort
Yeah.
paintings done, right? Like if I get 100 of those type of paintings done, I kind of feel like that will be the end of the beginning of me doing painting,
Hmm.
right? So if I'm getting 12 paintings a year done, that's going to take me like that's going to take me 8 years or nine
Yeah.
years,
Yeah.
right? So that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
That's like I may as well. It's fine. I might, but I'm like I would like to eventually do this as like a career if possible. If it doesn't work out, I'm okay with it. But I want to make sure that I'm putting in like my best effort,
Yeah.
right? I want to make sure that I'm putting out my best effort and stuff. So I needed to up my output. Um, so I have this tiny house here, and I have my painting set up right behind me, and
Cool.
so I already had the camera there. I already had everything, so it wasn't that much of a stretch for me just to hit a couple of buttons and hit record or hit
Mhm.
stream to go on YouTube and do it. Um, but that's I guess the overall reason why I started it was to increase my output so that I could get more paintings done.
That's awesome. And I mean, and you're saying this in conjunction with having a full-time job, which I think a lot of people who watch our channels, that's most people's situation or something similar. And I think like most people will go, well, I can't do that because I have a full-time job. Like, how are you navigating that?
I just do it, honestly. I just do it. Like the basically 2 or 3 years ago, I knew I wanted to do art more full time, and I had this. I used to have a small scale vegetable farm, and it fell apart. And then I kind of bounced around a couple different places looking for what to do. And I knew that I wanted to do something creative, so I was trying to figure out a way to make that work.
Yeah.
Whether that was like part of it's on YouTube and part of it's making paintings. Like I didn't care the split. I just knew
Right.
that like intuitively I had to do something creative to be like fulfilled and stuff. Like even if I
Yes.
had a full time job, or even if I had whatever, I always do something creative. So if I could turn something creative into the way that I make money, that's kind of like where I
Bonus.
would like to, yeah, that's kind of where I'd like to get to. So basically though, I um I got I was looking for jobs. I was looking for a part-time job specifically so that I could have maybe work 3 days. I have a really low, I should preface this by saying I've done a lot of things over the past 5 years to minimize my living expenses.
Mm.
I basically bought or I made this tiny house and I put it on my family's land. So I don't have to pay rent. It was all like negotiated beforehand that I could do
Hmm.
this or whatever. But basically, I've kept my cost of living down super low so that I don't need to rely on income coming in necessarily to keep on going. So it makes it a really like I basically set my life so that I could make a shot at like doing the art type of thing, right? So basically, I was looking for a part-time job that I could do like art, and I ended up finding this job doing pest control.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was not something that like I was planning on doing. I honestly, when I seen the listing on it, I seen it and it like on the website or whatever, and it said like pest control, and then I was like, oh, my first thought was like, oh, I'm not going to do that. And then I
Hmm.
started looking into it, and it paid pretty well, and it looked pretty ideal. And
Yeah.
so I didn't even send them a resume. I just sent them. I just basically said like, "Hey, I'm like a painter." Da, 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 told them my situation, and they called me back, and they're like, "Yeah, we think this is perfect. You can help us like grow this space or whatever." And the long story short of that is that, or the long story long, I guess, but is that I really liked the job way more than I thought. I
Cool.
When I first got the job, I thought it was going to be a throwaway job.
Right.
I thought it was going to be a thing on my. I honestly thought that it was going to be a romantic story that I told when I was this full time painter. That like, oh yeah, I tried doing all these different jobs. I did like I painted these machines. I did like this, and then I did pest control for a little bit. And people would be like, "Oh, really? You did pest control?
That
That
it's
must be so gross."
the
Yeah, and I would have
redemption
been like,
arc.
"Yeah, yeah." I would have been like, "Oh yeah, I was doing it. I was like, yeah, I was doing anything I had to make it."
Yeah.
But no, it ended up being a great job. I really liked the people that I was working for. There was another girl that was working there before me, and then basically as soon as I got hired, within a couple of months, she quit. So I ended up going full time there, and
Wow.
then in about maybe like the next, that was like say one summer, and then the next spring, I they made me like the operations manager for the whole place. So
Cool.
then I was like running the team and stuff. And so then it just like, it was one of those things where I tell people I accidentally got this job because basically that's kind of how it feels. Like it definitely wasn't, I wasn't searching for a decent career,
Yeah.
but so I really like my job though, is what I'm saying. It
That's
pays
awesome.
decent, and it's, there's a certain, basically you have to pick what type of if you want to be an artist or you want to do something creative, you have to pick what kind of stress that you want to live with. There's certain type of people that can do really good with not having that much money and being like in debt or taking on, they're more okay with like their finances being out of control. I'm not like that.
Hmm.
That does a lot on me mentally and physically and emotionally. And I think that actually gets me to a space where I can't create.
Mm.
This job, I'm getting um, paid good enough that like I'm I've got no debt, I've got savings, I've got retirement, and then I've still got extra money to be putting into my art. So like
Wow.
last year, even if I didn't sell anything, I'm still perfectly fine. Like perfectly fine. You know what I mean? But
Yes.
that comes at the cost of working all the time,
Yeah.
right? That comes at the cost of me going and basically doing a full-time job, coming home, eating dinner, painting for an hour, or going to bed. But I've chosen purposefully that I do much better under the stress of a heavy workload than I do under the stress of like the financial
The
burdens. And
uncertainty.
yes, for sure.
So I
So I
mean,
think you kind of, yeah,
well, what
go
I'm
ahead.
hearing from you, because I think a lot of people, and myself included, it's kind of like, no, I can't have that full-time job, or there's a threshold of responsibilities. For some people, there may be parents or stay-at-home moms or whatever. But people look at like the list of responsibilities that they have to do, and they see that as basically hemming them in or restraining them, preventing them from doing the art thing. But what you're saying right now is like, I actually took care of the core fundamentals that I needed to live well so that I can be creative. And so since, I think a lot of people would say like, oh, you want to make it as an artist, which if people haven't checked you out, they need to check you out because you're doing legit things. You're hiring models, you're doing your own photo shoots, you're not doing like little pencil sketches. You're doing full oil paintings, that take time, and you're doing that with a full-time job. So if the job and the responsibilities aren't being sacrificed so that you can do the art, what are you sacrificing to create that time at the end of the day to do the art?
Yeah, and I think the big fallacy that we tell ourselves is that like, oh, I'm not doing art because I don't have enough time. Um, but just because if you're not doing art when you don't have time in some capacity, I think that we'll get into it, but I think that doing it every day is probably excessive for most people, right? But I think that um, I'm going to tell you a story about so basically I wanted to do this farm. This was like an old dream that I had 2015 type of thing, 2014. I quit my job um and started this farm. And it was actually negotiated at my work to go down to 4 days a week and just take Fridays off so I could start this other business or whatever. And everybody was cool with it. Um, and the very first day that I had the first Friday off, I basically wasted the entire day messing around on Facebook. And part of the realization that I took from it is that like more time for a lot of people is not going to help if you're not disciplined. Right? More time is not going to help if you're not disciplined. And so I think that there's a bit of a fallacy thinking that if you have more time, you can do these other things. But there's like, oh, I forget what law it's named, but it's like that work will fill the time allotted for it.
Yeah.
If some people have 8 hours, they're not necessarily going to get 8 hours more of work done. They're going to get
Right.
if you're getting consumed by other life things or getting hung up on that other stuff, it's that all that stuff doesn't go away. All that stuff still happens.
Yeah.
So I think there's a big fallacy in that. I also think that you really need to focus on what are the key things that you need to do. So if I want to be a painter, I need to make paintings.
Yeah.
So I need to set aside that time for making paintings. Everything else is auxiliary, right? Everything else is extra to a certain
Yeah.
extent.
Right.
There's certain things I need to do, like go to the store to get paint so that I have paint here so I can paint,
Right.
right? I need to order canvases so I have canvases. I need to hire models so I can go on photo shoots so I have stuff to paint. But that's not as important as sitting down and painting, right?
Yeah.
And it's really easy when you have more time to think that you start doing all those other things. Oh, I need to go to the store. Oh, I need to hire models. Oh, I need to do this, and then still not do the painting thing.
Yeah. That's interesting. I think somewhere down the line, I saw you do a video about Marcus Aurelius, and I just finished reading Meditations for the first time, and there's a line in there. He says, "No random actions," and
Yeah,
and it's kind of like you're saying, like we can get sucked into the internet or into, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that, and even like if you say those auxiliary things like going to buy paint or doing the photo shoot, they can keep you from it. But also if you're thinking like this can't be random, so I'm going to get the paint here, I'm going to order the canvas here, and that yeah, like people think if we have unlimited time, I'm guilty of that. I've been thinking like, oh man, I just need more time, I don't have enough time to paint. And after like this first month that I've done it and almost the second month now, it's kind of dawned on me that it's not that I don't have enough time, it's about how I allocate the time that I have, because everybody has
absolutely.
24 hours in a day. And yeah, like there's those just time wasted on stuff that's not productive. And so that has been like clarifying my mind, like how do I maneuver myself so that I do stay on track more with it and stuff. So well, let me ask you, you know, what are you going to do about like certain life events? Like what will you do if you get sick or if you have to travel for a wedding, or how will you handle the doing it every day situation when things like that intervene?
I'm very much a hermit, so traveling for me type of things is like I go to work. Like this is what I'm choosing to do right now. So I don't have a lot of life things that are going to be getting in the way. But basically, the overarching answer is that I'll just find a way to do it.
Cool.
Like whether that means being in a hotel and taking my cell phone and having a notepad and a pencil and drawing something for an hour on stream, I'll do that. If the power goes out, same thing. I've got some batteries that I can use my phone for, right? I've got data.
Yes.
Um, if I was knew I was going to go somewhere for a weekend for like a conference or something, I could probably take my webcam with me, right? Like
Yeah.
there's different ways to
And you're specifically talking about streaming. Like it's actually harder for you because you're like committed to streaming your art that you're doing every day. But if
Yeah.
you didn't have a YouTube channel, you wouldn't have that extra concern, right? You could just do the art, right?
Yes. Which would make
Why
it easy.
why
Yep.
is the streaming a part of it for you?
I think that because first of all, you need to market yourself. You can't just be making stuff in a bubble. The other thing is that I really like doing the YouTube stuff. I because I'm making paintings, I want to film most of my paintings that I'm making anyways for my other videos. And so if I'm already sitting here, already filming, being on stream is, if I'm at home, is nothing. Like
Yeah.
it's literally like I've pretty much got my whole thing set up now, but it's like literally a couple of buttons that I need to click. I need to go on my streaming thing, put in the copy and paste the title, and click a stupid thumbnail, right? Like
So
take a selfie beforehand, and
you've
that's it. I'm doing it.
you've set it up so that it's streamlined and easy for you. Would you say that that's the same thing with the art itself? Have you set up, your art station or what? I kind
Yeah.
of know the answer to this, but like for people who are watching, is that something you would recommend? Like, how are you making it easy to do it every day as opposed to setting up your stuff every day and tearing it down and blah, blah, blah? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you need to create the least amount of friction between you and whatever you're doing, whether that's making art every day or streaming every day or whatever. You need to make it so that there's the least amount of friction. With that being said, that's going to completely change upon everybody's different context, right? Like if you have kids that are like I could just leave my paints out here if it was fine to leave paints out. I could just leave my paints and brushes out here and no one's going to touch them except for me. If I have kids come in here, obviously that's going to make a big difference, right?
Right,
If I have a cat that's going to jump up on my desk, that I got to start putting stuff away. So it's
right.
just like, but how can I streamline that whole process so that everything is there? And then plus two, I just started, and then now that I'm just about 200 days into it, it's I make adjustments as
Yeah.
things are going, and I have to realize what's going to be easier, what's not, what is working, what's not working, and just try to keep on navigating that.
So you're learning as you go. What would you say is like the thing you've
I
learned?
would say I would say for the efficiency part of it, I would say it's more thinking about it in terms of iterations
Hmm.
versus learning. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm like doing this process right now, but I'm going to change the system a little bit and tweak it and plug it. Like okay, now I used to have my brushes in jars everywhere on the other side of this thing, and now I have this drawer where it just pulls out right here because this is where my
Hmm.
easel is. So it's like little things like that, but it took me a long time to figure out that I needed a drawer here. As
And you,
stupid as like as intuitive as it is to have this here now,
yeah.
you know what I mean? It took a
Yeah.
while. It took me like I did it for whatever. I just put this in 2 weeks ago. So whatever, 170 days it took me to figure out I needed a drawer there.
But you can't necessarily know those things until you start, right? You kind of have to
Correct.
start that process and then you go, oh, I need to change this aspect or this thing will help me or what have you. So
Yeah,
I get,
there's a thing in entrepreneurship called like the minimum viable product. Like a lot of like Silicon Valley guys will talk about it. But you need to start off with that. You need to start off with the minimum viable product of your idea. And they call it MVP for short. But you need to start off with that. You need to start off with that. So for me, that meant that I was gonna hit the stream button and start doing the painting, right? And then as you're getting more comfortable and you have more resources, which means time, money, energy, then you're able to do more. And then also plus two, you'll gain a bit of momentum, hopefully. And then things are oh so easier. Like I was never worried about the views, so like at all, to be perfectly honest. I've done stuff before for views and I was super concerned about it, but I was never I 100% was like there'll be definitely a day where like zero people come, where zero people comment or whatever, and that never happened once. So
hmm,
that's like very grateful for that. But also as it builds now, there's less chance of that ever happening.
yes. Yeah, the more that you do this, the more special it becomes, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And the more, especially like with the title, how it is, making art every day till I break.
Yeah,
The longer that title goes, the more value it has. Because
yes.
if somebody sees making art every day till I break day 7, they're like, oh, that's cool. That guy's paid for a week. But if it's like day 30, it's like, oh, okay, cool, paid for a month. Day 365, a year. Like day 1000, like, oh shit.
Yes.
But that's every day that's going to happen, right? 1001, 1002. So it's like you get so many hits out there, so many reps, so many everything. But yeah.
So I wanted to touch on that. I mean, that is like a really interesting way to put it. I mean, it puts some tension in there, but like, what does it mean to break? How do you see this ending? How do you see this ending?
Uh, how do I see this ending? Right now my will to do it is pretty strong. So I think I'll touch on the ending part first. But I see it ending in that honestly, right now, I think that if I it would have to be like a car accident or something where I was like like you know what I mean, it happens in the middle of the, like I stream at night, right? So something
Yeah,
could happen to me where in the middle of the day, where not even a bad car accident, but you have to go to the hospital or whatever, right? And
right.
then I'm stuck there all day, right?
Yeah,
I could see that happen, like something like that to that effect.
yeah,
Um, Maybe somebody at my house gets sick and I have to go take them to the hospital or like
right,
something like that. But right now, I don't see it being that I just forgot or that I didn't
right.
feel like doing it because I've already had those days where I didn't feel like doing it. You'd asked me that earlier, and I didn't. I kind of danced around it. But like, what do I do if I'm sick? If I was sick, I would just do it. I would just
Yeah.
do it and be sick. Like that's what I would do. I've like this last week I had like an infection in my leg. I've been on antibiotics and it usually makes me
Oh,
feel gross or whatever. And it's just like is what it is. There's always going to be a reason to not do it, and there's always going to be a good reason to not do it. But you have to do like if you're making. I'm the type of person that if I make a commitment to something and say that I'm going to do this, I'm doing it.
hmm.
And yeah, so mhm.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So let's say, the fates intervene. You get in that car accident, some,
Yeah,
circumstance stops you. What are you
yes.
doing the next day?
Probably starting around season two.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, no, but like I am gonna do it for a long time. To me the so I really like mixed martial arts like UFC and stuff. I'm a big fight fan. Like every Saturday night, that's what I do. I watch fights, whether it's boxing or mostly MMA, but I'll watch the big boxing fights now. But in combat sports, a really big factor of it is a person's will,
Yeah.
the will to keep on going, the will to keep on fighting, even in the face of adversity, whether that means bad stuff happens all the time, right? And I used to do MMA like a long time ago, so I had like 6 fights or whatever. But um there's certain times in a fight, especially in regards to pushing cardio and pushing the pace on someone, um, where you can break their will to continue and the opponent will basically look for a way out. So maybe they could have fought that choke a little bit longer, but because you've already taken them into deep waters, they're looking for the way to quit or whatever. So I basically already know that about myself that I can go into those deep waters and be uncomfortable. And so to me, like that's what that means. Like I'm doing this until I break, right? Whether that means and I put in the title and to me that means more emotionally my will to do it versus like physically breaking like I can't the
Yeah.
car accident example,
Right.
right?
So that kind of ties in with something else because so last month I made a video. I did art every day for 30 days, and I just searched that into YouTube to see what came up, and all the top things were like the worst art advice on YouTube: do art every day. And this is almost like a little bit of a new trend of other art YouTubers are coming out. Obviously, I think maybe you could argue that at times there's a trend to say do art every day. Now there's this counter trend. And so people are putting that out there. And I watched it and they really bring some antagonism. They really, really do. And I look in the comments, it seems like this is a fairly popular viewpoint that doing every art every day is toxic and it ruined my art and it's the worst thing you can do. What do you think about that?
I think that I think my biggest thing would be to say that if you're doing it if you're doing art because somebody told you that you should, if you're doing something, anything every day because someone else told you that it was a good idea to do it, that is probably in some ways a recipe for disaster eventually,
Mm,
obviously.
hmm.
Um, the will to do it has to be intrinsic. It has to come within you. I don't think that you can you I can't tell you what to do to make you do art every day. You have
Right.
to be the one that tells that to yourself because there's, like I said, there's going to be something that happens. There's going to be a good reason to not do it every single day,
Do you
right?
think,
So you have to be the one. I can't be the one. You can't call me and I can be Danny. You got to do that shit today, dude. I don't care if you're on antibiotics, right? I don't care, like
yeah,
whatever. Your girlfriend broke up with you. I don't
yeah,
like that. Doesn't matter to me, right? You have to do it. That will has to come from within you. I think that there is. I think that so basically, I think that there's a lot of validity to the people who said that not doing art every day, but also like, what does that mean? Do art every day. You know what I mean? Like to me,
yes,
that means I'm trying to get to that 100 finished paintings. I didn't explicitly say that, but like that's what I'm trying to do. I'm
yes.
trying to like be my best, get my collection together so I can sell it, so I can get stuff out there. But like, what does that mean? Does that mean making 10 minutes of crappy sketches? Like, what does that mean to you? Does that mean doing courses?
That's
Because
kind of
like, yeah, different
that's kind
goals,
of
right?
what it
For different.
mean. That's what it kind of means to me, honestly. Like I have like a zero minimum threshold. So, in a way, I'm doing it every day personally because I'm trying to figure out the why behind the art. And I just saw like an inertia. I kept doing art less and less, and my desire kept going less and less. And that's not how I started. And so I thought, what if I sort of arbitrarily ramp up production and I commit that I have to do some kind of art every day? But I
Yeah,
personally, I'm keeping it loose. So like sometimes I am doing 5 minutes of a crappy pencil sketch, or I'll do watercolors when I'm definitely not as focused as you. And yet I am seeing like a benefit where I'm sort of like stumbling my way towards, oh, I want to do some bigger oil paintings. I'm trying to do more stuff in the studio. I'm keeping my art supplies ready to go, like you're saying. And so I'm finding that kind of initially taking that step of a commitment has like helped me grow. So, but I definitely think like depending on who you are and what you want, like you have a very specific thing you want, but somebody else, they might just say, oh, I want to be an urban sketcher, or I just like the
yeah,
idea of having a sketchbook, or, one of the things I originally loved about picking up art is that it's like an analog practice as opposed to just scrolling on my phone. So a lot of times,
right.
like I'll keep a little pocket notebook and I'll bust it out when I'm standing in line, or instead of scrolling. And so I
Totally.
think there's you can make your own reasons for it, and I agree with that. Um, so what? Well, maybe end it here because I want to be respectful of your time. But like, what advice would you give
We can
me?
go as we can go as long as you want, dude.
Okay, okay, cool. Well, I'm trying to think. Is there any other questions I didn't ask you because we kind of touched on?
How long have you been? Do you want to do? Do you care if I ask you some questions?
Yeah.
How long? So you've been going 60 days now?
Well, so I had a little snafu. I legitimately dropped the. I started on January 1, but I somehow forgot on January 5. So I
Yeah,
restarted on January 6th. So I'm going to go
gotcha,
January 6th to
gotcha.
January 6th.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I've done it once before. The previous time, because I'm very much into like daily rituals, and so I had, like you had said, I had identified creative things as sort of like a nutrient that I need in my life. If I don't have some creative outlets, like my soul starts to die. And so
yeah,
I want to say I actually lost count because it was like 3 to 5 years where I did music every day, art every day, photography every day. I read every day, and there might have been one or two other things in there. And I remember the day that I lost one day. It was Thanksgiving. I had driven like 10 hours to go to my uncle's house, and I just crashed and I fell asleep, and I woke up the next day and I realized I had like lost my streak. And then
yeah,
I just continued it. And then so I did that for several years. It became like a way of life for me. And then I had a death in the family, and then I just stopped everything for a while, for like 3 months.
Yeah.
And ever since then, it's been really hard to like recapture that magic because a 3 or 4 year streak is a long streak,
Totally.
and then to just go cold turkey for 3 months, that's kind of a long break. And so yeah, it hasn't been the same since then, but this time I do feel like I'm starting from scratch. I do feel like I'm starting from scratch, so it's
Oh,
interesting.
what are you gonna do? A year?
At least, yeah, at least a year.
Cool. And what about what's your minimum parameters? What constitutes as a win?
So uh, art like art material has to touch art surface. That's it.
Okay.
I really in my life, and especially because I teach music lessons for my job and some art lessons, and I see it's just so common that people have like a minimum that stops them. And I went to music school. When I was in music school, like we had to practice 2 hours minimum a day. And so a lot of my colleagues, when we left music school, you're in real life, it's kind of hard to always get 2 hours a day every day.
Yes.
Some of people do more than that. And so actually for years I stopped practicing because I had a job, I had all of these things, and I would go like if I can't practice 2 hours, maybe say I had 90-minute block, I would go, it's not worth trying. And I see that
Yes.
all the time with my students. Like maybe they have half an hour, but they go like, it's not worth it to just play music for half an hour. And so then they play 0 minutes instead of 25 minutes or whatever. And on the
That's
contrary,
exactly what I was doing. That's exactly what I was doing before I started the daily streaming thing.
yeah. And on the contrary, what I've seen is like when people have no minimum bar, yeah, there's going to be a few days where like you just do it for a couple minutes because you didn't plan right or whatever. But if like your mindset is like, I'm doing this, some days it'll be 2 minutes, some days it'll be 10 minutes, some days it'll be 4 hours, and you'll get so much more out of it. And that's what I'm seeing right now. The other day I painted for 4 hours. That's very rare for me, but I like canceled things in my schedule and planned ahead to do 4 hours, and I want to do longer. I want to do like 8 hours and
Yeah.
just, but a month, before January, I didn't want that. I didn't want that at all. I didn't care. So it's kind of
I know.
interesting.
But I think that like doing it every day also helps shift your mindset to you realizing that you are that type of person that does that thing,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
I'm the type of person that does the art, not like I'm not like when it's convenient, but just in just blanket statement,
Yeah.
right? Type of person that does that.
I mean, you said something like if I want to be an artist, I have to make paintings.
Yeah.
I once heard an author, it was John Grisham. He writes, legal thrillers, but he
Yeah.
came to my school and gave a talk, and he talked about how, he was trying to write his first book, and then he got busy with life, and his firm did this, and they moved, and they had kids, and he didn't write on his book for a year. And then he came back to
Yeah.
it after a year, and he was like, "What do you know? There were no extra chapters, there were no pages, the book didn't write itself." And he said,
Yes.
if you want to be an author, then you need to sit down and write. And so that's what I did. And then, he is like one of the most financially successful authors, of the current era. So
Yeah,
it's
but he was a lawyer,
right.
right? And then I think maybe it was him, but he might have went to work early for those 2 or 3 hours, wrote in the morning, and then did that. But he also, I think he put out 2 or 3 books before he ever quit his job because he
Yes.
he didn't need to quit because he was in basically similar position to what I'm in, which is like you have a job, but you figured out a way to do that thing that you're doing anyways, right? And
Yeah.
then it's like because same thing if you have family and kids, like I don't have that, so I can be a bit more loose and free with my time. But like if you do have that, like that's even more restrictions. There's going to be more reasons. If you all of a sudden have like 4 people, if you have a wife and 2 kids and a pet, like there's going to be something that's happening with somebody every like not a tragedy, but like something every
Yeah.
single day. Every
Yeah.
single day, there's going to be a fire to put out, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I think that it's like super important to like get into the habit because like just because if he quit his lawyer job, that doesn't necessarily mean that he would have done more. The other thing that I think too is that there's a book called Daily Rituals by Mason
That's
Curry.
one of my favorite books
Oh
of all
yeah, me too. I
time.
really
That
like
book
it.
changed my life. Yeah.
Yeah. But the my big takeaway from that book was that most of those people, high level creatives, philosophers, um, great thinkers, they 2 3 hours most days
Yeah.
on whatever. It's not like they're putting in 20 hours a day type of thing. They're doing like 2 or 3 hours and doing it consistently over a long time span. And so if I get that 1 hour in a day, that's great. If it's sometimes it goes out to two, that's awesome. Um, if it's six or more, that's great also. But that's good. Those are going to be rare, right? But before I
Yeah.
was waiting for 6 hour breaks. I was waiting for those 4 hour breaks,
Yeah.
and I was not getting anything done. And then
Yeah.
now I'm just like crushing on everything because I
And
put that.
and I want to say, like, to those people where, you're saying, oh, you've got, a spouse and two kids and a dog and you got to go get groceries and everything like that. I think, like, what I hope people take from this conversation is, like, you looked at your life and you saw that this creative outlet was important to you, and you found a way to do it in a way that works for your life. And so for someone out there, they're like, well, I can't be like Scott or Danny or whatever. You don't want to, we don't want people to be like us. We want them to be like them. You know what I mean? You need to live your life. And if you have all these obligations, find, but if you identify like art or whatever it is important to me, like, you can carve out that time, and it can be 10 minutes a day or 5 minutes a day, and make it important to you, and like put it in your life. And it doesn't have to push out your kids or whatever. You can have kids, you can have a job, and you can have responsibilities. You can still find a way to do the art. I hope that's
Totally.
what
And
people see from you.
yeah, I think the other thing too is that it's like it's also easy to look at what I have now and it's like, oh, he's got like the whole studio, he's got everything there, but this is a slow burn. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like I think I bought my first camera in like 2016 to start doing YouTube type stuff.
Yeah.
So say since 2016 till now, whatever, that's almost 8 years, right? Like that's a lot of days for me to have
Practice.
iterated that whole
Yeah.
process down to where I got to with all the changes in my life, finding better jobs, finding doing, making changes, um, making drawers, right?
Yeah.
Uh, tons of stuff, right? So I mean, it doesn't need to be perfect right away. I think it's more important just to start going on it, right?
Yeah. Well, awesome, man. I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us. Where can people find you and follow what you're doing?
I'm Scott Hebert R on YouTube. That's another thing. I just have YouTube because I don't have any other social media, no distractions, no anything. I'm just doing YouTube, making paintings. Yeah, yeah. So I'm Scott Hebert Art on YouTube, and I have a website. It's scotthebert.art, and that's it. That's it. That's where I'm at.
That's awesome. Well, thanks so much, Scott. It was fun hanging out. We'll have to do this again sometime.
Yeah, for sure, dude.
All right. Appreciate it. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, see you, dude.
See ya.